going, everybody? How's my audio? Just checking the sound levels here first before we get started. Welcome, my children of the night, to this most spectacular event. Today, we will be answering your burning questions about HorrorVale. So here's how this will work. First, I'll answer questions from the Discord that have been pre-sent, and after those are all out, then we will open the floor to live questions. And we'll probably run for about an hour or two, hour and a half, something around there. If there's time after the questions, we might play a little bit of HorrorVale, just for fun, because this is the celebration. This is the celebration of a year of HorrorVale, a year since it launched, which is frankly insane. But yes, welcome in, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for the first HorrorVale Q&A since the game launched. There's a lot of new folks in here, a lot of new people in the community, which makes it very exciting. So, without further ado, I should also mention, Matt was not able to attend this time, but I provided him some of the questions that people sent specifically for him, and he answered them, and I will read those out when we get to them. So, without further ado, let us begin with the questions for HorrorVale. Let's get some different music going on. I think we've had enough of Imperfect Peace here. Let's see. Let's do Shuffle Playlist. No Carnival Tale. I should also mention, expect spoilers. This is under the expectation that you've played HorrorVale, so expect spoilers for HorrorVale. This is the first time I really talked about some of this stuff since the game launched on a live stream. Oh, is the mic picking up the music? That's unfortunate. Hang on, let me see if I can't fix that real quick. I guess I could get headphones. That would probably make the most sense. This cape is kind of terrible, actually. Let's see here. Wait, hang on. I need to. Let's go to sound mixer. Oh Lord. Make sure all my levels are correct. Okay, that should fix the double audio problem. You know what? Internal, that's probably a good idea. Maybe I will read spoiler-related questions at the end. So... Oh, this is the perfect song for this kind of thing. Anyways, questions. Your burning questions. So, from Tex, we have... What inspired you for getting into game making and ending up with creating HorrorVale? Well, I've always had a talent, or a passion rather, not a talent, definitely not a talent, let's be real here, a passion for creating things. And even back in the day, I used to play like the RPG makers that were on PS2, and I would just mess around with those and try to create games. And obviously I've gotten into webcomics and stuff like that. Turn the music up. Okay, let me see here. Right, let me... There we go. But yeah, so I've always had a passion for creating things. And Matt and I always wanted to create something together. We had talked about several times about creating something together, like creating a game. And one day, on October of 2016, I got the idea for HorrorVale. And I said, hey, do you want to make this? I can do the art, you can do the music. And it all snowballed from there. Let's see here. Sailor. If you could do a collab with any other popular and or indie game, which game would it be, and what would you do for the collab? I had a lot of trouble thinking of an answer to this question because there's not a whole lot I would collab with. But I always say to reach for the stars. So, more than likely, the best possible thing that I would love to see happen is Alice in Smash Brothers. Obviously, that would be like a dream come true. That would never happen in a million years. but that would be amazing. Um, so, next, from Hazard. How many more purchases of HorrorVale will assure a continuation of the HorrorVale series and the other possible plot lines throughout the underworld? Well, you might not know this, Hazard, although I think you do, because there already is one of those happening, called HorrorVale Act N. But obviously, I would love to create more stories in the underworld, perhaps. I think there's a lot of potential there. I can't say for sure about an exact number that would be required to justify something like that, but there is definitely an interest there, I'll tell you that much. Midnight Channel. A world-building question. What are the stunt devils like in HorrorVale? That's an interesting question, because for stunt devils, there's no risk of dying, per se. I mean, they would die, but they would just respawn. And I think it would be a very prolific career for zombies and skeletons who can just fall apart and get back together. Bofrob. Who is your favorite optional party member and favorite enemy encounter? My favorite optional party member would undoubtedly be Mask Guy. I think he's a hilarious character. I think he's very fun. He's not a typically gag-driven, humorous character. He's very blunt, very monotone, very straightforward. But I think that adds to his comedy a lot, because you have all of these absurd situations, and he just kind of goes with the flow. He doesn't really question it much. And plus, his gameplay style is just very interesting. Being able to creep-voke the creepies, very interesting to create. And my favorite enemy encounter, I had to think hard about this one, but I think probably more than anything, it would have to be Mark the Murderer, because he appears multiple times, and I think it's very, very funny how he just keeps showing up. He doesn't really have any motives besides that he wants the smoke. He wants to stab somebody. He just loves violence, and I think that's a great trait for him, and I think that makes him a great character. Matt also answered this question, and he said, and I quote, "Skippy, my beautiful neck-shattering son, though Barnaby and Jackie are tied for a close second. For enemy encounters, I'd have to say the recurring Mothman fights with the cryptid crew." That's from Matthew. Let's see here. This one from Oof. Are there any characters you feel like are underrated? Not discussed or in many fan works as often, characters that you wish got the spotlight from the community more. I'm actually going to have to say Flint. Flint is a character that repeatedly has performed not that great in character popularity polls. I don't often see a whole lot of Let's Plays that feature him in their rosters, but I think he's a great character. I think that perhaps not many people are as interested in him because he's just a nice guy. He doesn't really have that many character flaws. He's just a friendly, nice guy, and perhaps that deters people from him. But I think that he's a great character, and I wish more people would use him and give him a chance. From Cram, would Braxy love me if I was a worm? For the uninitiated, Braxy is the nickname for the Flatwoods monster. And I think that Braxy would like to study you, like a petri dish, if you were a worm. You can consider that love if you want to, I suppose. From Mystery Master. This is a very serious one. Why is Zhang like that? And I would answer, like what? Absolutely perfect. This is a spoiler question. I'm going to come back to this one. What characters... this is from Quiz. What characters had the most fun dialogue to write in your opinion? And I think that would have to be Webbs. Every time I had to write dialogue for him, it was absolutely fun. Sometimes I would just throw him in scenes just for no reason. He's in a lot of Act 2 side quests, just for no reason, just because I wanted to write dialogue for him. I think he's a very important character in the main story because he acts often as a character that explains things to Alice. I think, and also to Bolt too. I think Bolt can sometimes act as an audience insert. Bolt doesn't know a lot of what's going on in the underworld because he's very new. So Webbs can kind of act as that character to explain things to him, and he often does it in a very humorous way. From Trickster, we have, was Elysium ever planned to be a location in HorrorVale? What do you think the city is like or would have been like in gameplay? Well, there wasn't ever a plan to include Elysium in HorrorVale. From the get-go, I wanted to create a world that felt very lived in. Like there were many things going on besides just what's happening in HorrorVale. I feel like in a lot of games, you have the location that the game takes place in, but you don't really get a sense that there's anything outside there, almost like it's in a little bubble. I feel like Zelda games are often fall victim to this a lot because you have Hyrule, but you don't always get a sense that there's a lot going on outside of Hyrule. And I really wanted to make you feel like your story is, or Alice's story, is important to her, but it's not necessarily important to the rest of the world. And Elysium and the other continents and the rulers and all of that kind of helps to enforce that. As for what it would be like, I kind of imagine something like a less depressing version of the Aku City in Samurai Jack, where you have all these very tall skyscrapers. There's probably a lot of public transportation, lots of trains and stuff like that on bridges throughout the city. Very commercialized with ads and things everywhere, all over the billboards. I kind of imagined almost a tier system to it, where you would have lower levels, where those are kind of the slums of the city, and as you get higher up into the city, you get to the richer people. It's also a very large city, much larger than any city in the world, because you have to imagine that there are a lot more dead people than there are alive people. So the population is very massive. It's not like anything that you could really imagine in our world. But yes, very large, very, very neon and commercialized, and I kind of think of it like New York City on steroids, that kind of thing, if that gives you a vision at all. Probably some Greek architecture in there somewhere. Let's see here. This is a spoiler question, so I will avoid that one. Okay, so let's see. What? Okay, I think I wrote this very weird in my notes, but I think Eslan had two questions. One was a spoiler, and the other one is a different one. I'll answer the other one for now. What kind of anime does Chris like? Well, you can actually get an answer to this in HorrorVale. She has a moment with Juno and Beatrice. It kind of gives you an idea of the anime that she likes. She likes very mainstream shonen anime stuff with a lot of hype moments and aura, that kind of thing. From Lovely, will we get anything else after Act M, and why was Kenneth running around the Withering Woods? Well, I would love for there to be more HorrorVale after Act M, but I can't say anything right now. We'll just have to see. And as for Kenneth, he was just having a fun time. Why wouldn't he be running around the woods? Belyaves Fox asks, would you be willing and able to put a CRT filter in the game for retro enthusiasts? I'm not exactly against it. I can't per se... I would need to really think about how that would be implemented in RPG Maker. Surely it wouldn't just be an overlay, an image overlay. That would probably be very lazy. There's probably a bit more into it. I don't know if it's a super big priority. I think that CRT filters make a lot of sense for actual retro games, but HorrorVale isn't really a retro game, and it wasn't. The sprites weren't really developed for a CRT television, but it's something to look into for sure. Perhaps, yes. Who was the? Oh, Jax asks, who was the very first person to become a soul eater in the underworld? And this is going to be a very boring answer, but most likely just a random caveman. The underworld has been around for a very long time, since the first human became aware of themselves. There were many, many years of human existence where we weren't really doing anything in particular. We didn't have complex societies. We just kind of were roaming around the jungle and eating bugs and stuff like that. So one of those guys most likely became the first soul eater. Scott had a very important question. Let me read it exactly as Scott wrote it verbatim. Scott asks, is Scotty in love with Beatrice? And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. They will be canon if there's a sequel. I will make sure to include that. Sailor. This one's for Matt. But have you ever considered making slowed down or reverb variations of some songs? Perhaps even nightcore versions if you want to get bold. And Matt answers, I think slowed reverb tracks could be pretty cool. A few tracks I made for HorrorVale already received the slowdown treatment in-game, being reused in different areas. And because my composition style can be a little frantic, hearing the melodies slowed down sometimes makes them sound better. So, if I've got time in the future, a mini slow verb HV album would be fun to make for sure. As for nightcore, I'll leave that up to you guys to make. I don't want to get my hands dirty. T-Warrior also has another question for Matt. Will we ever get some of the music files from HorrorVale? Like MIDIs, FLPs, and the samples used in songs, and maybe a list of the leitmotifs, the notes, who they tie to, their meaning, and which songs they appear in. Matt says, I prefer not to release files like MIDIs and FLPs. It somehow feels a little too revealing. I don't want to pull back the curtain quite that much. As for leitmotifs and those details, I think it would spoil the fun if I published an exhaustive list of where they are and what they mean. IMO, it's much more enjoyable to let the fans figure it out. Well, there you go, T-Warrior. From Bofrob, what is your favorite optional quest in the game? This was a very difficult one for me, but ultimately I think I settled on A Tale of Two Birds. The second quest featuring Raven, Bubbles, and Buckethead. It's not a very long quest, there's not a whole lot going on, but I love quests that have interesting character interactions and quests that have interesting atmospheres. I love very atmospheric areas like the Blood Bank and the Ruin Lab and stuff like that. And so the bunker where a certain creepy is doing their horrible experiments is a very atmospheric place that I really enjoyed. Matt also answered this question. Matt said Plum's second quest, and the scene in Fritz's office is one of his favorite scenes in the whole game. There you go. Stony asks, how much is the recommended amount of dedicated RAM I should have to a server? At least 2. From Napkin, do you wear wigs? No, this is my real hair. Holgar, does Bat work? I sure hope it does. From Talam, has working on, developing, and writing HorrorVale helped you to process thoughts of loss, death, and mortality in life? I would say yes. HorrorVale, I began development on it and writing the story for it in the same year that my father passed away. And so a lot of those feelings and emotions and thoughts were very present on my mind. And more so than me, I wanted to create a story that might help people who are also experiencing those kind of feelings. For me, creating that story was a way to kind of get those feelings out there, and I think my hope was that those messages might reach some other people as well who are also coping with situations such as that. Art Toast, do you have any advice you can give when it comes to writing characters, story arcs, world building, etc.? I always say to start with basic ideas. So, for instance, the basic premise of what a character might be, what is their concept, what are the major story points for the story. Like for me, I created HorrorVale, the story for it, with the beginning and the ending kind of in mind from the start. And then I came up with the major points of this happens in Act 2, this happens in Act 3, this happens in Act 4, and kind of filled in the gaps as I went along. And I think that's very important. As for world building, I think it's, for me at least, I try to create questions that don't necessarily have answers. And by that I mean they do have answers. Like I have a full idea in my head, but Alice doesn't necessarily need to know everything about what's going on in the entire underworld. And so I really try to do that, to create, like I mentioned before in the other question, about creating an expansive world that feels very big, even if you don't get to visit it. From Moving Target. If there are future plans to develop this universe beyond Act M, would you be sticking to the RPG format going forward? If not, what would be other genres you'd maybe like to explore? I would certainly like to explore more stories in the future. If I did, they would most likely be RPGs. I think that RPGs are the kind of genre that are best suited to this kind of story because you can have a wide world with many characters and unique enemies that are, and something like that is a lot harder to do in other genres. That requires a lot more effort. But I am also interested in like platformers and action adventure games. Those, I don't know if I would do something like that, but they would be other genres that I would be interested in creating something in. From Boingo, do you have a P.O. box? No, but potentially maybe we could have in the future. If people were interested in sending fan mail and that kind of thing, so I could certainly open a P.O. box for fans. That might be interesting. From Napkin, for the hypothetical HorrorVale 2, would the main cast stay the same as the first game, or would any of them get demoted to optional / side characters? If I ever made another full-length HorrorVale game, Alice would always be there. A HorrorVale game without Alice is like a Zelda game without Link, or a Mario game without Mario. It just wouldn't feel right. As for the others, well, it would depend on the story being told. And that's all I have to say on that matter. A question for Matt. From Atom65. For the music of HorrorVale, what were some of the main inspirations that you took for creating the soundtrack? And Matt says, typically the soundtrack was inspired on a track-by-track basis, as Dustin would send me reference tracks to take inspiration from for each track that I composed. Two main inspirations I can point to personally are Grant Kirkhope for strong, memorable melodies. Donkey Kong 64 soundtrack was a huge part of my childhood. And David Wise. I'm certain you can hear this in more chilled out tracks like Evergreen Etude. Spacebar. How do you sketch out the maps for HorrorVale? In the Act M streams we saw how they get made, but what goes through your head when deciding the layout of maps? Have you ever completed a map and implemented it in the game that you had to change later for technical reasons? Well, to be honest, there wasn't a real rhyme or reason behind it. A lot of the maps were set pieces that I visualized in my head first, many times months or years before actually making them. But in terms of creating the actual layout, I tried to make sure to space out puzzles and enemies evenly. Although I never completely changed or deleted a map before, there weren't anyone that were absolutely cut. Belyave's Fox with another question. Have you tried playing the game on a TV to see what the player couch experience is like? And I can't say I have because it is a PC game, but I can't imagine it would change that dramatically. To be on a large TV. I'd have to try it sometime. It might be interesting. text. Will there be any change where you can change key bindings? Well, you can actually do this to a degree in RPG Maker by default by pressing F1. You can change the key bindings. I don't usually advertise the F1 menu because it's the default RPG Maker settings, and I think it's very clunky. It wants you to assign keys to buttons that don't really make sense. I know that many people have complained about the lack of D-pad support on gamepads, and unfortunately, even with the F1 menu, you can't change that. But there are some community things on Steam that you can use to do that. Unfortunately, RPG Maker is kind of obtuse in some ways. There are things that you can change with scripts, and there are things that you can't change because they're so hard-coded into the engine. One instance of that is the F12 key, which resets the game, that you can't change or turn it off, and also the F12 key is the default screenshot key on Steam. But if HorrorVale were ever ported in some way, that stuff like that would be a lot easier. It would be a lot easier, but you would have to port it in some way to another engine to make that possible. I'm actually going to be right back for just 1 second. I got to go do something. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So, before we continue, how is everybody on this evening? On this spectacular evening? Is everybody having a great Halloween? Alice sighting. Yes, there are at least 3 Alices in this shot right now. Gizmo, that was extremely rude. Talon is absolutely terrified. Perfect. Anyways, let us continue. From Bro. I've seen a lot of people imagine sequels for HorrorVale that take place in the other 3 continents, and I want to ask if that's actually something you considered, and if so, what conclusion did you have? Did you think that's the perfect way to show off more of the world, or did you think the game should probably connect with the Valley of HorrorVale, or do you think that tying each game to a continent with the town of HorrorVale is limiting? What I can say to that is definitely I would not want to return to the town of HorrorVale. I think that I would not want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that definitely going back to the town would be extremely limiting. Pick Soup. What made you choose RPG Maker VX Ace for HorrorVale? What resources did you use to learn how to use RPG Maker? And would you ever port HorrorVale to a different engine for things like console releases? Well, to be honest with you, the only reason I went with RPG Maker VX Ace is because Lisa the Painful was made in that engine. When I was first starting and wanting to make HorrorVale, I wasn't really sure which engine to use. MV was the newest one at the time, but it was very expensive, so I was like, I don't know what the differences are between the different engines, but I just looked up what was Lisa made in, and I thought, well, surely there isn't anything more than what Lisa's doing that I would want to put in this game. I think that I ended up pushing the engine quite a lot in terms of what it can do. In terms of learning the engine, though, to be honest, I didn't really watch many tutorials. I think I watched a few early on just to get a simple grasp of how events worked and things like that, but a lot of it was just learning on the fly, figuring things out as I went along. I think that if you were to look in like the back end of the RPG Maker file and look at a lot of the events and things, you would see a lot of the events and things in Act 1 and Act 0 are kind of amateurish, and as the game goes on, by Act 4, you can tell that I'm starting to actually understand what's going on. Just a moment. Now, in terms of a console port, obviously a Switch port, console port, those would be a dream come true. However, such a thing is not quite a simple task. In order to port HorrorVale to a console, there are several different ways to do it, but essentially all of them involve a different engine. What you could do is something like what Lisa did. So the Lisa developers, for their definitive edition, they completely remade the entire game in a different engine. I think it was Unity. So they remade it from the ground up. They had to redo everything. That's one way to do it. Another way is you can create a custom engine that is able to read RPG Maker files. So essentially what it does is it's able to read all the events and the maps and stuff and scripts and basically process it like that. But all of those are not something that would be simple and easy for me or the team to do because we're not really programmers. We would essentially need to connect with a publisher of some kind who would be willing to do something like that. So it's certainly not off the table. It's something I would love for it to happen. But if that ever did happen, it would really depend on if we could get a publisher interested in doing something like that. Which, for a game like HorrorVale, that, let's be honest, is kind of obscure. Not a lot of people know about it. There's an inherent risk to any publisher about spending thousands and thousands of dollars to make this happen, paying employees to program it, and then it not doing so well. But we'll see. I mean, it's never impossible. That's all I would say. Let's see here. Big meaty flaws with quite biblical greed, honestly. 3 questions here. Are there any questions left on the cutting room floor you wish made it into the game? Party members, NPCs, etc. Or any characters you wished you could have fleshed out more? I would say that I put in every character that I wanted to. There were some cut party members that I mentioned, designs that I created, but I wasn't particularly attached to them needing to be in the game. There were some characters that were going to be in Dracula Manor that ended up being cut so the cast wasn't too bloated. There was the Deathbringer, which was a very violent orc. There was the Hemomancer, and I think... Oh, there was Bathra too, but Bathra got repurposed into the guy standing outside of HorrorVale Castle. In terms of characters I wished I could have fleshed out more, I would say probably Bubbles, Rosette, and Flint. Bubbles in particular, I really wanted to go into more about what makes her tick and why she is the way she is, but I couldn't really find a way to fit it into A Tale of Two Birds. If you were given a chance to do a spin-off in the HorrorVale universe, what would it be? Well, big meaty flaws, you might have never heard of this, but there is actually already one in development, and it's called HorrorVale Act In. It's about Mothman. You play as a Mothman, and you get to experience the story of HorrorVale from his perspective. But besides that, perhaps a Animal Crossing-like life sim might be cool. And third, what is my favorite food? I'd have to say it'd be a tie between shellfish and sushi. Generally, if I'm wanting to go somewhere fancy for a celebration or something, that's generally the kind of place I go, either seafood or sushi. What happened to my music here? Oh, there we go. From Cram, is Alice's story complete, or do you think there's some loose ends that could be explored in the future? I think there are more stories that could be told there. There's a lot of mysteries about her past, but I wouldn't say anything more about it than that. From Tex, will there be a HorrorVale 3? In fact, yes, Tex, there will be. We decided to just skip 2 entirely. We're going to go straight to 3. It'll be 1 and then 3. I hope you look forward to it. Polyvale, are there any gameplay features that you wanted to implement but were limited by RPG Maker or your own expertise? I would say that RPG Maker's limitations really hurt the mini games. I remember, in particular, the well minigame had to be changed dramatically because originally it was going to be just a scrolling like an auto scroll, but it was impossible to make Beatrice move down while also being able to move left and right, because due to the tile-based system, if Beatrice is in the process of moving down a tile, until she has moved, she cannot then move left or right. It won't let you do it in RPG Maker. So it felt... If you thought the well minigame felt bad now, it was 10 times worse before, and I had to change it, which was very unfortunate. In order to make it difficult at all, I had to add the chase sections and add more spiders. They're originally like the chase thing, when you pick up the key and you go back up and there's like a monster chasing you, that originally wasn't even in it. It was just you go down, you avoid some things, and then you get the key. But it wasn't able to. I couldn't get it to work like that. There was also going to be a trick or treat system, which essentially was like how in many RPGs, particularly like Paper Mario, if you run into the enemy from behind, you get a bonus, and if they catch you off guard, they get a bonus. And it was going to be like, if you catch the enemy off guard, it's a trick, or it's a treat. And if they get you off guard, it's... If they catch you off guard, it's a trick. And it would have had various effects. It wouldn't just be them getting... like getting an extra hit in or something like that. Let's see here. From Gabu, what was your design philosophy for the environments in HorrorVale? For the most part, I wanted to make the locations very distinct and recognizable to make it easier to get around so you didn't get lost as much. I thought it would be, if each one of them was for the most part unique, it would be, you would remember where everything is. I think that kind of fell apart a little bit as I got into Act 4. There's a lot of similar looking areas in Act 4, which was probably one of my regrets for that act, but for the most part, the distinct locations is very maintained throughout the whole game. And also in general, just keeping the visuals fresh can help with a lot of the like RPG fatigue of seeing a lot of the same things over and over again. It helps keep it fresh. From Pick Soup, are you still going to eat your shoe if HorrorVale gets super famous? Absolutely. But that will never happen, so it's fine. From Dan, and that's not my Dan on the team, that's a different Dan. Any mayor ideas that were scrapped or remade? So I think what he meant to say was any major ideas, because obviously all of my mayor ideas were perfectly implemented because Ludwig is perfect. But major ideas that were scrapped or remade, probably a big one is Mask Guy's abilities. So originally he had a very different system for how he worked. He was much more like a Persona protagonist, where you would select a creepy, and then there would be a list of different moves that you could activate. It eventually became something more like that one Pokemon that can swap between a sword and a shield, where when you use the move, it changes to the new section, to the new version. It was kind of like that. That's how it had to be turned into. It wasn't even necessarily like it couldn't be possible to do it the original way. It just would have been extremely needlessly complex, especially because at that time in development, Mask Guy was going to be temporary party member because there was going to be act-specific characters. So you recruit Mask Guy in Act 2, and then you can't bring him to 3 or 4. So I was going to put in all this effort to implement this super in-depth system that you can use for like 4 hours. There was also a cut area toward the end of the game. You were going to explore Alice's memories. It was going to be like a whole dungeon in the very end of the game that I cut out because, let's be honest, the ending of HorrorVale is already long. Can you imagine if there was also an entirely another dungeon? It would have been nuts. Will HorrorVale... Oh, Camo Hat. Will HorrorVale come to console sometime after Act M comes out? I already basically answered this one before in the previous questions. From Mars, were there any issues regarding copyright? Be it design, music, or just references? And was there anything you had to cut due to copyright? Well, no one reached out to us with complaints about things to change, though we did change samples to avoid potential issues. Certain samples in like Spooky Swing and Who the Girl Sets Free, things like that. In terms of references and things, that's not really something to really be worried about because those are parodies, and parodies is very fair use. Dr. Stylish, is there an interest in making a physical copy for the Switch? Well, as I explained before, just getting a port in the first place is already a tremendous, difficult challenge in itself. Getting a physical release is an even more physical challenge. I would love it, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that one. I would like it, but I feel like the only kind of situation where we could have something like that happen is if it got a port and we like partnered with somebody like Limited Run Games, but I don't really want to have like a limited run of a physical copy. I'd like it to be something you could go to the store and buy, but that's like a pipe dream. People be highly optimistic about ports. I mean, I think a lot of people perhaps don't realize that the Batworks team isn't like a team of professionals in an office. As you can see, I'm just a guy in my bedroom. All of my testers are volunteers. Our artists and my programmer are just working off of like commission. Like I pay them to draw a map, or I pay them to make a script. They're not paid like actual employees. Why is it specifically Switch ports in terms of questions? I think that because it probably just makes the most sense. If HorrorVale had to be on one console, obviously Switch would make the most sense. Let's see here. Going back to questions. Crystal clearing. What was your design process, design philosophy when it came to making characters for HorrorVale/Act M? Well, for the most part, I tried to have a simple philosophy, which is to create designs that are very simple. So I don't want a huge amount of details in there that can clutter the character design and make it like a mess. But I also wanted them to be very recognizable and unique, so they would be easy to draw and understand. And I think for the most part I succeeded at that. But that's generally what I aimed for with the designs. From Nova, what was your favorite part about making HorrorVale? Honestly, probably my favorite part is watching people play it. In general, I try to attend almost every stream that I can. I can't always do it because I have work or I'm doing something, where there'll be like multiple streams at the same time. But watching people play it and seeing the joy on their faces and watching them bob as they listen to the music and they get attached to the characters, that's absolutely the best part. That makes it all worth it. Gabolfla, any interest in an official translation patch update? I have Spanish-speaking friends that would like to play the game, but sadly don't know English. A lot of the challenges there are the same challenges that when it comes to like gamepad support and stuff like that. It's not outright impossible, but it's very difficult to put together for RPG Maker. I could, for instance, probably get someone to make a script that could create an official language option, but the second challenge is getting someone to translate it into those different languages. And it's not enough to just get a fan who's like really passionate about it. You want the translation to be very high quality. You want a translation that's very accurate to the source material, that gets across the feelings that you're trying to get across in the English version. I can imagine there would be a lot of challenge in translating a lot of the references and like spooky puns and stuff like that. But certainly I would love something like that. It's just another kind of thing where we would need a publisher to help us with something like that. But it's definitely something I would love to make happen, especially like Spanish and Japanese. Those are big ones that I would really like to get translated into. Napkin. Would you ever consider doing 3D games, or are you going to stick to 2D stuff for the most part? I'm not really strictly stuck on 2D. I would be happy to... I would have to learn Blender. I've been playing around with Godot. How do you say that? Oh my god, Gizmo, what the... Godot. I've been playing around with Godot. So I'm certainly very interested in working in 3D. I'm not against it for any reason. From Stony. The rules of stories happening from different perspective has mandated it needs to be from 3 characters. If we have Alice and Mothman so far, who would the third one to experience the plot TM of HorrorVale TMB? I kind of had struggled with this question. Because there's not many other characters that are in the story as much as Mothman and Alice, like throughout the whole thing, who could potentially work that aren't also in Alice's party. I think perhaps maybe like Scruffy or the Revenant Girl, or even like Mark the Murderer. That would be very silly. Play HorrorVale Act MA and you just go around and stab people, and that's the whole game. That might be interesting. I reached the bottom of the questions here, so I'm going to go back up. I'm going to answer the spoiler questions. So, if you haven't finished HorrorVale, I think there was two or three questions here. If you just want to tab out, mute it for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then after that, we will open up the floor to live questions. But let's see here. So again, spoiler questions coming up. Let me see here. Where did they go? Here they are. From Penny. What inspired you to write the story of the two Alices? How long did you have the ending planned out? I think that for the most part, the story of the two Alices came from a desire to write a story about confronting grief. And I thought it would be interesting about having a character in this universe confronting their own death. Originally, the other Alice wasn't even going to be like real per se. It was all going to be in Alice's head. Like the whole plot about the aliens creating her and it actually being a physical entity wasn't even a thing. It was all in Alice's head, just like the distant memories inside of her coming forth and manifesting as this character that like tortures you throughout the whole game. I ended up making her an actual physical character to kind of, because there were two very like separate plots. There was the alien plot and then there was the plot with the Revenant, but I wanted to make them more connected so Alice felt like she had more of a purpose in the story and she wasn't just there. So that aspect of there being the two Alices was always there. It was a little bit different. And likewise, the ending was a little bit different as well. So originally, at the end, Alice receives this choice from a very important character. And originally that was going to be an actual choice that you made. And it would affect how the game ended. But giving you that choice didn't really feel like it fit with the themes that the game was trying to get across about moving on and accepting the past. So I got rid of the choice and I created the ending where they merged together, which I think works a lot better. There was another one here. Let me see. From Trickster. Oh, no. Eslam. Were there ever more aliens like Elvirus out there? Yes, there was an entire species of them. There is a piece of examined text at a certain location in Act 4, which will tell you more about them, but essentially they're all extinct now. But there was a whole species of plant aliens. Was there one more? I thought there was one more. Let me see here. Maybe not. Maybe that was it. Yeah, I think that was all the spoiler questions. Okay, spoilers over. Unless somebody asks one in the live chat. Obviously, since Matt isn't here, he can't answer live questions. But what we're going to do now is for a little bit, we're going to open the floor to the live questions. For those of you who were not able to submit your questions in the Discord, now is your chance to ask them here live for me to answer. So, go ahead. Why is Bolt green from Team Warrior? Because any other color would be terrible. I did try to make him blue at one point, and it no. You can't have a Frankenstein monster that's blue. Maybe yellow, but not blue. Matt Ryo, how has your day been? My day has been good, wonderful, very, very spooktacular. Texas Art Toast. Where did you get that sick costume? You see, my friend, I traveled far and wide, across the lands, to a mysterious place known only as Spirit Halloween. I entered its doors, and there, the satyr stood before me. so it was mine. Will the streams have timestamps after it ends? Probably not immediately, but later, yes. From text, how is Alice doing? I assume you mean the cat. She's very good right now. She's over there. I love Mothman Means Business, but not really the perfect song to have while I'm talking. What was I saying? Oh, Alice is laying down and scratching on her scratchy thing. I know the story started as old versus new horror, but how and when did the space people get thought up? Well, actually very early on, within like the first few days of when I was trying to figure out the story. It's kind of inspired by Silent Hill. Silent Hill always had these like joke endings, where you had to do a bunch of nonsensical stuff to get a secret ending. And in the first one, there's one where aliens appear. And I guess the implication is that aliens were secretly behind all the crazy stuff happening in Silent Hill in this game. And I always thought that was hilarious. And the idea I had was, what if one of those was real? And that's just like the actual canon ending. Like, that's what happens. So that was literally it. It was literally like, what if the creepies were made by aliens? And how stupid that would be. Except it's real, and you have to take it seriously. Will we see the Pumplins again in Act M? Probably not. I'd say no. Mothman never visits the Pumplins. He doesn't even know they exist. The Real Biker, if there are any future HorrorVale games, will there be voice acting in it or no? Probably not. Voice acting is very expensive. And I think it would, for an RPG with like regular text boxes and stuff, I don't know. Like a 2D RPG, it would just be weird to me. I kind of prefer the little voice noises. Maybe for like very special things, like special scenes or special characters, that could work. Originally, the white-robed character at the end of HorrorVale was going to have a voice. I considered that. I thought it might be cool. Ended up not doing it, but that was an idea. From Big Meaty Flaws, can we get a live spooktacular? Spooktacular! In case you weren't aware, that is me saying the spooktacular in the game. How many spooktaculars have you witnessed Gizmo and Alice do over the years from Stony? Many. Mostly Gizmo on Alice. He always is the one starting the fights. Alice doesn't. She's very nice and sweet. Gizmo's a horrible little creature. Trickster TV Real, are there any aliens in media you wanted to adapt for Act 4 but couldn't figure out or just didn't get around to? Not really. Generally, if there's something I really want in the game, I'm just going to put it in there. I'm not really going to say no. There was one point where Nickelfly was going to be one of the captains. Maybe that counts. He got demoted to NPC. Matty Ryo, what is the story of Oregano? That is the bat that appears in the Batworks Software intro for HorrorVale, the little red one. Oregano, I just wanted, when I named the studio Batworks Software, I just thought it would be cute to have a little bat. And originally, I wanted to name him Basil, off after Basil the Batlord from Lego, but I didn't want to just copy it, so I came up with a name based off of a different herb. And actually, let me see here. Oh, a darn cape. I have Basil the Batlord right here in the Spooky Flesh. I think that old set was one of my favorites as a child. A stupid cape does not want to stay on. You know what? The cape has overstayed its welcome. I think. I think it's overstayed its welcome. Let's see here. Can you bring... Wait, where'd he go? Oh, can you bring the two Alice plushies closer to the camera? You can also bring the cat if you want. I don't want to really take off my headset to go all the way, well, earbuds to go all the way over there, but I can get a cat. Gizmo didn't appreciate that. Is Alice still British? You bet she is. Of course she is. Why wouldn't she be? Oh, come on. Does your vampire alter ego only appear on Halloween, or are you like this 24/7? Yes, this is actually how I dress all the time. In public, I'm always like this. And I'm always talking to everyone like this. I go to the Olive Garden, and I ask for no garlic, and they kick me out. Lovely Lemur, what was the idea behind the Pumplin / why did you make them? Well, obviously there's inspiration there from, like the Mr. Saturns and Earthbound. I can't even really say. I guess I just wanted like a village of silly creatures, and trying to imagine what that could be for this game ended up as the Pumplin. And combining that with Jackie, who was already a character that existed, just made sense. I kind of wanted something that was very simple, like very cute, very similar to like Chow from Sonic Adventure. So that was kind of the inspiration behind them. Medin, what are your major inspirations for the game? So you might expect the stereotypical stuff like Earthbound and Undertale, but actually a lot of my inspirations were Luigi's Mansion for like the tone. That was big on me. I really love Luigi's Mansion because I consider it like a children's horror game where it's very clearly meant for a younger audience, but it's also still very scary, and that was kind of my inspiration behind the tone, because it's also a little goofy at times as well. And also Nightmare Before Christmas. When I was a kid watching that film, I think about things in a weird way, and so when I was watching it, I'm thinking about like the world and like the lore that doesn't exist in it. Like, what is Halloween Town? Is it the afterlife? Are all of these characters and Jack Skellington dead? They say they're dead. So were they people once, and then Halloween Town is where they go when they die? What's outside of Halloween Town? When you leave there and leave the forest, what is out there? And perhaps those kind of questions eventually evolved into what HorrorVale became. Additionally, in terms of game design, there was actually a lot of inspiration from The Legend of Zelda. I'm very big on Legend of Zelda. Besides HorrorVale, Majora's Mask is my favorite game of all time. And the way that Zelda games are designed, a lot of that influenced HorrorVale in terms of level design, progression. You notice there's a lot of puzzles in HorrorVale. There's a lot of mini games. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, and that all came from Zelda. Is lightning supposed to be the continent exclusive element for Tartarus? I would say it's probably not exclusive. I wouldn't say it's exclusive. Or do you plan on getting a Steam Deck or different handheld PC? I would like to get a Steam Deck at some point. I would like to actually see how the game plays on it. That would be a very enlightening experience, because I have no idea. I've never even used a Steam Deck, so I don't know how it looks on it, how it plays. I heard the button layouts are very weird. But yeah, I would definitely be interested in seeing that. Is there any secret lore that you're keeping to yourself? Yeah, like I said before, a lot of HorrorVale is about creating questions that to the player seem to have no answers, but I have all the answers. So if there's something you don't know about in HorrorVale, I guarantee I know. I just won't tell you. And I think that's very important for keeping people interested and creating a sense that there's more to the world than what the game tells you. Jamie, Deja Vu, was there any concepts that for one reason or another didn't work in HorrorVale but were later implemented in Act M? Not necessarily. I would say, I mean, there's a lot of things in Act M that you actually get to see and visit that you couldn't visit in HorrorVale, but they also weren't really things that I intended you to go to. I guess maybe I was always interested in showing off what South HorrorVale looked like in HorrorVale. Maybe that will show up in Act M, but besides that, there's not really a whole lot I can think of. It keeps punching me down all the way to the bottom when I'm trying to read something. Was HorrorVale meant to be a kids game? Not really kids. I consider it to be a game that's targeted towards late teens to young adults. So like 13, like between 13 and 25. That's kind of the intended range. Obviously, it's if you're older than that, you can still enjoy it. Obviously, I'm 32, but that was kind of the specific range, and that's why I kind of, there's things that are dark in there, but there's also not like excessive cursing or excessive gore or things like that. Even though there's like a lot of dark stuff, like for instance, a dog gets hit by a car, but you don't actually see that. It just goes to black. But yeah, that was kind of the intended age range for people who I would want to play it. Are there any of the music samples supposed to be characters' voices in universe? Not necessarily, but I think there are some that could certainly work for them. Like Salmo 6IV, the voice sample in there could very easily work for Alice. And there's also the minigame song where there's like a girl that goes, yeah! I think that would be a very good voice for Beatrice, because that's the first place you hear it, I think. One of the first places you hear it, or one of the most memorable places you hear it, is when she's descending the well. Oh, Alice and Raps were OCs before HorrorVale. Were they fan characters for a different series, or did you just have them to have them? They weren't OCs for anything. They were literally just random character designs. I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to just design characters for fun that weren't really meant for anything. Just because I love designing characters, and so it was just a way to like stretch my creativity and design fun characters. I think Raps was literally just, what if I made a mummy but cute? And I couldn't even tell you the idea behind Alice at all. Like what went into my mind to make her. I probably was just drawing something and it just went from there. There was probably not even any thought into it at all, which is crazy that she ended up being the main character. Is how respawning works for creepies and scary symbolism for something, or is just that something to set them apart from the standard undead? It was to set them apart from the regular undead, but it was also just meant to really exemplify how they were made in a lab. Like there's nothing natural about them, and they're kind of incomplete in a way. And I think it's also to like make you feel a little bit sorry for them, especially when you figure out that the scaries can't respawn at all. The creepies can. They mess up over time, but they can still respawn. But the creepies just collapse. And if they get destroyed completely, they're just gone forever. Oh Lord, not this kind of song. Jesus Christ. Do you have any interest in revisiting the works you made prior to HorrorVale? Obviously, I would love to go back to those webcomic stories and finish them. I don't know if I ever will. I would love to, though. It's just a time thing. Any time that I spent on those would detract from Act M and other HorrorVale things. Maybe if it ever got to a point where I had more people helping me, I could go back to them, but not right now. How do you feel about the Rallis ship Alex / Raps? I think that would be very cute. I have nothing against it. I think they have a lot of cute moments, especially in her second quest and in Act 1. Especially when you go into Ludwig's lab for the first time, and Raps calls Alice her friend, and Alice like blushes like she's really happy about that. I think there's some chemistry there, sure. From Lovely Lemur, out of the Act 3 party members, who is your favorite in order of highest to lowest? I don't know if I could rank it like that, but probably my favorite would be Plum. Plum or Juno? Yeah, Plum or Juno. Those would definitely be my favorites for Act 3 party members. Would you have HorrorVale be in widescreen if remade or ported to console? Probably not. I would most likely what I would do is something like either what's happening here on this stream, like you see my webcam is in the HorrorVale ratio, but there's like picture behind it and around it. I would do something like that, or like a picture on the side. A lot of games like Undertale does that for console releases, and also Lisa. And I think it would also be cool if it changes depending on where you are in the game. So if there was a port, it would inevitably be something like that. It could just be a black screen, but going full widescreen everything would have to be changed to adjust to that. Everything in the game. At that point, you might as well just remake the whole thing entirely. Can an undead learn to do a Kamehameha? I mean, Alice literally does. It's called Electro Beam. That's literally what it is. Something else. Okay, that's interesting. So I thought there was something about how creepypastas died because of the repetition of cliches. That's an interesting thing. It's not really something that I had in mind when creating the creepies, but that's definitely an interesting interpretation. Let's just pretend like that's what I intended. There's actually a lot of things in HorrorVale like that, like things that I didn't intend at all, but ended up being perfectly aligned and made sense. And a lot of the major story beats ended up like that. Like they just happened to come together perfectly. If holy was an element in HorrorVale, then what kind of creatures would have it? Unicorns. There's a unicorn corpse in Dracula Manor, and those little guys will vaporize you with like holy power. Does Elvirus ever meet Elvis? I'll leave that up to your interpretation. Is Joro supposed to just be Majora's Mask, or is there Jigsaw and Jim Carrey, the mask, thrown in there? So a lot of people think there's inspiration from the mask in there because it's green, but that wasn't really something I had in mind at all. There's definitely primarily Majora's Mask is the main thing. When Tajoro is being worn by the killer, there's definitely some Jigsaw in there. The outfit was inspired by Zant from Twilight Princess as well. But yeah, definitely there's meant to be some Jigsaw in there. I mean, it should be pretty obvious with the when he comes on the screen and he says he wants to play the game and he has a little puppet and stuff like that. How does Jean get around so fast? She can hop very fast. She's hopping the whole time. Why Mask Guy didn't get a bone element move? I couldn't think of a good creepy that would make sense to be a move that's also bone. Like, I guess I could have done the Pirate Pete, I think is his name. But that's not really like a super iconic creepy. So I don't know. There was one point where I thought, what if I made him a move for every single creepy, an entire game? and some of them were just crap, and some of them were really good, and you kind of had to pick and choose which ones. Why aren't you blue, and why aren't my glasses glowing radiantly? I just decided to turn off the blue for now. Why is Tajoro green? So there is a general design. Hang on. There is a general design philosophy that I have when designing my parody monsters. And that's that I want them to be similar, but also like similar enough to be recognizable, but different enough that they're not the same thing. Like Tajoro is not Majora's Mask. They're their own thing, but it's what it's parodying. And a simple way that I did that for a lot of designs is to just change the primary colors. So if a monster was blue in the creepypasta, it might be red in HorrorVale. That kind of thing. And so I had different color ideas. Like originally I tried the original purple, and then I tried red, and I tried green, and green just looked the most natural to me. Excuse me. Green looked the most natural to me. So that's how we ended up green. It didn't really have anything to do with Jim Carrey's The Mask. Even though he washes up on a shore, we can just chalk that up into another perfect coincidence. What party member optional moment is your favorite? Probably Beatrice, Juno, and Chris arguing about anime. The moments that have multiple characters are interacting with each other, I love those. I want to know since forever, what does the Phantom Mask in Dracula's castle do? It's the only item that is never used for a door or changed into equipment. What is its purpose? Huh. Well, that's weird. Friend wants to know if Zhang has to hop around or if she does it willingly. She probably can move her legs, but it's a lot more comfortable to her to hop. She enjoys it. She likes to hop. Does Scruffy get the milk? No, he does not. Scruffy does not get the milk.mp3 or .ogg. A lot of people have no idea what I'm talking about. If you look at the files for the sound effects in the game and music tracks, the track for when something happens to Scruffy at the end of the game, it'll make sense if you see it. Favorite character going off of only design. I think it would be very easy to just say Alice. But I'm going to say instead Plum, Zhang, or Webbs. I think they have some of the best designs in the game. I love them. Was Juno getting extra often the moments in the extra Zhang cutscene on purpose to let people know she was awful before her second quest? No, that's just how she is. She's a horrible, miserable person. I wish I could just like throw her against the wall. Horrible little creature. Will Act M finally make me believe in the power of the Mothman? I think all of the Mothman haters and doubters, when they play Act M, it'll completely change their mind. They will realize how wrong they were to doubt the power of the Mothman. Lemon, I did actually answer that question, or at least a very similar question earlier on. So check out the VOD later. Will I have a great Halloween? I think I will. This is a great Halloween. I'm hanging out with all my lovely citizens, my creatures of the night. What is Act 4 Secret Boss based on? It is based off of a webcomic that I did prior to HorrorVale. If you look up Alarcus Comics, you should be able to find it. It's just, I wanted a secret boss that was as like very, very selfish, like just very, very for me. Dustin, if things had turned out differently and you had added more recruitable non-spookies, who do you think would have been an interesting additions? For creepies, Mark, when he started out, when I first put him in the game, he was like, I didn't intend on him to be multiple times. It was like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care for Jeff the Killer that much. I think it's one of like the worst creepypastas ever made. But I love Mark, and if there were more creepy party members, perhaps Mark, perhaps Speedster would be a good one. That would be a hilarious creepy to have in there. Leonard, if he could fit, we could squeeze him down into a tiny size. For scaries, maybe the Catcher. That might be a good one. The telepathic. Oh God, you guys are gonna kill me. I don't even remember his name. The Psychic Beetle. Will there be more K images in my Act M for my collection? Ending villain images in Act M for my collection. Perhaps. We'll see. Perhaps. Are the cryptid crew all considered spookies aside from Hopkins, Flatwoods, and Dover? I don't know who Dover is. I don't know who you're talking about. But yes, Mothman and Bigfoot are spookies. They are humans. The distinction between Starry and Spooky is, do they have a human soul? That's really all that is. And they have human souls, so they're spookies. What was your way of making the gameplay for each characters? Did you have gimmicks you wanted to use and just gave them to random characters, or you went with their vibe or design? I always looked at their design and character to come up with ideas. Obviously, the patron party members and contest party members, I reached out to the creators to kind of help with ideas for that. But for all the ones I created, I generally had specific ideas in mind for play styles when I was designing the characters. Like Bubbles, I wanted her to be a DPS. Like, I wanted a nurse that is a DPS. Mask Guy, like I said, I had the idea originally. Mask Guy had an entirely different moveset. He was going to be like a useless character who could just like fumble around and stuff. But sometimes randomly Tall Guy would show up and just destroy the enemy. And for some reason I thought that would be an interesting gimmick. And eventually I developed his mask swapping ability. There were another character like Skippy. That was a very tough one to come up with a moveset for, because the creepypasta that Skippy is parroting has one gimmick. That's all he does. You blink, he kills you. And originally, I was going to have it where all that could happen is Skippy had for Skippy to do anything in battle, you had to blind the enemy. But he would go crazy on him. He would do like a ton of damage. That was the original idea, and eventually I kind of worked into kind of the Weeping Angel time gimmick to expand that. What distinguishes a spooky from a cryptid? A cryptid isn't an actual official denomination in HorrorVale. That's just for the people playing it, basically. Because Mothman is a cryptid, but he's just a spooky. What made you switch from Skeleton Nurse Bubbles to Silent Hill? So what this person is talking about is an original concept. I had an idea for 3 skeletons. There was Alice, who was a red mage. There was Raven, who was a white mage, a healer. And then I had an idea for a nurse skeleton that would be a black mage. That would essentially do all, like, damaging spells. But eventually I changed that into Bubbles, and the reason is very simple. It's just because I wanted a Silent Hill bubble, nurse party member. It was just like I needed this to happen, so get rid of this thing and include this thing. It's kind of like how there had to be a Plague Doctor party member. There were certain ideas I had, they just had to be included. When will the HV Wiki be finished? Well, considering that it's community driven, that really depends on you, the viewer. Is Mask Guy immune to being cursed because he's technically summoning others and doesn't have a power of his own, or was it just for game? Excuse me. For gameplay reasons. For some of the I wanted every character to be immune to one state, and for some of them, it's a little bit of a reach. I think for Mask Guy, like you said, it would nerf him a lot more than other characters to be cursed. But also, maybe I just looked at him and saw, yeah, this guy can't be cursed. He's just like that. He would ignore it because he doesn't understand what a curse is. Who is the most silly character in HorrorVale? That is a very tall list. But if we're just going by party members, Webbs is very silly. He's very goofy. Bubbles is very... Actually, you know what? Bubbles definitely... Actually, what am I saying? Plum. Of course. Plum. Absolutely. Plum is the literal clown. What was the inspiration for the goat George? He is parroting a Gygus from Earthbound, and I wanted a character that felt like a Pokemon that is too high level for you. You don't have the badge for George. That's what I wanted him to feel like. What does the universal translator for Mask Guy come from? It comes from Kenneth, honestly. I can't even tell you that there was this interesting, unique reason that worked into his character. It's literally just... I kept drawing Kenneth and Mask Guy together, and I thought of this like funny dynamic where you can't understand Kenneth, and Mask Guy just translates everything for him. They kind of ended up having this almost like C-3PO and R2-D2 dynamic. But that's literally all where it came from, is he can translate Kenneth, so obviously to translate other guys. Now there is a lore reason for it that works into his powers. But I won't go into that right now. Does HorrorVale have its own Halloween equivalent in universe? It does. It's called Pumpkin Day. All the children come together on Pumpkin Day, and they wear masks and purple robes, and it's meant to be based off of a folklore character called Stingy Jack. And essentially they go from house to house dressed as pumpkins, and they ask people for money, because candy in universe is money. So trick-or-treaters have an entirely different dynamic in the underworld. They're literally going from house to house asking people for money. Will Plum keep her word and be in the theoretical HorrorVale 2? I will let you decide that. If there was one, I mean, she did say she would be. Is Plum a liar? Will we ever get to hear Kenneth speak? I mean, Kenneth speaking, it probably just sounds like the adults from Peanuts. That's kind of what I imagine, where he's like... Wah, 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 wah. Wait, you said that the underworld came into existence when humans first developed sentience. Does that mean we can't have zombie dinosaurs? Potentially. Because where the underworld was in the universe, there were still animal souls in there. They were just kind of floating around. So as it developed and got bigger, potentially some ancient animal souls could have floated down to the ground and then formed. So it's not impossible. You could have very well had cavemen and dinosaurs at the same time, like in cartoons like the Flintstones, except it was actually real. It is, we are running at an hour and 40 minutes now. I did want to play a little bit of HorrorVale for fun, just to kind of go through and have a little fun. So probably I'll run questions for about 5 more minutes, so ask them while you can. Is Zhang a Napier reference from EO3? Honestly, I don't know what that is. She's just a Zhang Shi. I assume that that character you're talking about is probably another Zhang Shi character. They have very, Zhang Shis have very, also, I said that wrong. Zhang will kill me. Zhang Shu characters are very popular in media, and they all have that kind of iconic design. Okay, I think we're done with questions for now. Thanks for everybody who attended and asked questions in the Discord or live. This was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun answering all these questions for everybody and getting to communicate with the community and stuff like that. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, I'll answer these last two, and then we'll get started on some HorrorVale. No more questions after Lovely. Spoiler question, can Poe potentially permakill someone by erasing all their memories, leaving no data for them to respawn? Yes, he could take death memories too, but he chooses not to. Does Jackie know the inebriated zombie, and if he does, how well do they know each other? Yes, they were co-workers. You can see him in Jackie's cutscene. But yes, anyways. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here on this most spectacular occasion. On this All Hallows Eve. But for now, let's just play some HorrorVale just for fun. We are going to start at the beginning. But technically, I have already done a developer commentary for Act 0 and Act 1. So we're going to speed run through this and see how far we get. Let me see here. Aha! Here we go. We are in HorrorVale. Let's play some HorrorVale to celebrate the first anniversary. We're gonna speed run this. Me and Matt already technically did a commentary of Act 0. You can find it on the channel if you want to. But I just felt like playing some HorrorVale because it is Halloween. Obviously, you play HorrorVale on Halloween. Stoney has never played HorrorVale on Halloween? What's wrong with you? Why would you? This is the perfect game to play on HorrorVale. I mean, on Halloween. Everyone should be playing. Everyone. Markiplier should be playing HorrorVale right now on Halloween. Well, I'm from Tartarus. I've never heard anyone use the phrase HorrorVale. Wait, what am I doing? Oh, yeah. Scruffy, why did you let that happen? He just stood there. He didn't do anything. It's an Elysium expression. Also, you know what? Since I technically already did a commentary of this, if anyone wants to ask any more questions, I will try to read them out as I'm playing. You know what? Screw it. We're not going to save. We're not even going to save. We're going straight into it. It's funny, but in earlier builds, this land was not even possible to beat with just Alice. If you didn't get Scruffy, you were not leaving the house. Let's see how far we can get in like 30 minutes. Thoughts on trying to introduce someone using the old demo? I mean, if you have no other choice, sure. But I don't think it really gives you a good idea of what the game is like. Mind telling me why these bugs haven't been fixed? I don't know. I can't believe that nobody else has ever discovered that you can just phase through the walls. Wait, you know what? Can you even lose this? I have no idea. Like, I don't remember what happens if you lose this. Okay. Doing police station without friends bold? I don't think it's that bold. I intended you to be able to do it without friends. You see this before you even get to reps. What am I doing? I do not have that item stone yet. I was talking about. And now we can do this breaker puzzle. Speed run strat. Yes, Foxfiend, if you have trouble with that puzzle, you can just buy it. Let's see if I can beat this thing at this level. Don Holgar, there will be no shower stream, I'm sorry. That's actually not that bad. See, I told you you can do it without just Alice. And I'm low level right now too, because I skipped a bunch of stuff. Whoa, what was that? Here we go. I kind of wish that the game had more segments like this, like little segments where you're very tiny, like Minish Cap type sections. The shrink shroom stuff was implemented into the game very late, so it was difficult to really like fit it in. If I had an idea for it earlier on, it probably would have been implemented better. Like, it would have been cool if it was like an ability that you could just use at any time and you could find little areas to sneak into. Yeah, the cockroach was definitely hitting me harder than a shovel. Or harder than the shovel. You know what? You netherlings live another day for now. Wait, while I'm going through stuff and clipping through things, I wonder if I gave this any dialogue. No, no fun dialogue. I should have done that. That would have been funny. Get some party members. Party members are for chumps. Oh, whoops. Can all tiny bugs talk, or is it just that guy? That guy is not technically a bug. He is a human being that unfortunately became a tiny bug when he got into the underworld, which is very unfortunate for him. I don't want to deal with that guy. You know what? Maybe I should get some party members. Let's get some party members. Let's get Klaus right here. Let's go ahead and get Mark. Let's take care of Mark. Is there such thing as a soul transplant? If I was a tiny bug, could I become a ghoul or something? No, sorry, you're stuck. That's just what you are forever, for all eternity. What is Klaus? He is a ghoul. He just doesn't have a nose for some reason. Whoa, I wonder what that's supposed to be. Why is she standing there? You know, originally those boxes weren't there, and Mark just like hopped up from the bottom of the ground, which was very silly. Why does his regular attack do more damage than his knife? What in the world? I'm not worried about getting Mark the murdered. Okay. Before we get any more generators, we should definitely go get a party member. Who should I get? I know. It shouldn't take us too long to get this party member. This iconic Act 1 party member. Oh, wait. This Jack guy has a lot of fans for some reason. Maybe I could try to do his voice like a real Let's Player. You delivered the package. Excellent. Excellent. Let's see here. There's a local shop down the road who's got payments due. You know, for protection. It's a dangerous town around here for all small business after all. I need you to go shake them down and get me my candy. It's the flower shop on North Avenue. A plant girl runs it. Use whatever methods you gotta use. Just make sure she knows not to take my services lightly. Get your ass on. We're committing crimes. Just one sec, I'll be right back. Alright, let's continue our very regular and normal HorrorVale playthrough. What the? Wait a minute, which one does he use? Hold on. Ah, here we go. I don't know why you guys are acting so crazy. This is just regular HorrorVale playthrough. Can I beat Jack at this level, though? That is the question of the century. Okay, first off, poison up. Wait, that's it? That's all the damage he does? Oh, but I do, like, no damage to him. Not the trip! Oh no, it's over. It's over, chat. This isn't the run. Oh damn it, that is not what I wanted to do. Yeah, just keep doing that over and over if you want to. Spectacular! Evaded the attack? What are you talking about? Bada bing, bada boom. That was actually a pretty challenging fight. That was fun. Clearly, everyone should immediately go to Jack in Act 1 and recruit him in. It's a lot more fun. Exactly, Dan. I don't understand it at all. Oh, spacebar. We're in Act 1. We're in Act 1. Don't worry. Jack is instilled with fear. He's like, wow, this really is a no-nonsense kind of girl. I'm glad she's on my side. Isn't that all of them? Why is the monster deranged? He was born that way. I'm not worried about running out of money for Jack now. Alice is a very experienced mountain climber. Oh, I forgot I made the cliff immune to the heal. Cliff is blinded. It can't be healed, but it can... Okay. Let's kick the cliff. Make sure it trips. Yes! Trip the cliff. And we continue with our regular HorrorVale Let's Play. Imagine the cliff is actually some like poltergeist that just decided to live inside a cliff, and he's just he really is just having a horrible day. You know, this scene is kind of like really ridiculous when you think about it. It has literally absolutely nothing to do with anything else that's going on. I just decided to put this here when I was making Act 1 for no reason. What the fuck? Hold on, these are all blood. Having the multi-hit move in Act 1 is crazy. This is going to be a lot of delicious XP. Goodbye. Oh, great. Gotta do all these puzzles. I gotta brew potions. I gotta do all these things. Thank God I'm immune to electricity. Grab some money real quick from this little spot that everybody knows about. Who the fuck is this guy? Excuse my language. Jack's face is killing me. I need some badges. Definitely need some badges here. Wait. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Wait, did it just remove Jack? Wait a minute. Wait a minute, where'd he go? It's okay, he might just be invisible. It's probably fine. Jack, please, we need your elemental advantage. We're extremely underleveled. We skipped all the enemies. I have no idea how this will go. Probably very badly. Peak song. Peak song. Let's trip him. Yes. Wait, did Trip not just do... Is Trip not a sugar move? That's... Why does it have the sugar icon on it? Well, we're actually kind of steamrolling this guy, I'm not even gonna lie. Wow, that was an easy boss. This game is for babies. Unfortunately, Mr. Frankenstein, we have a gun. Why did you put the word disassembled in ominous red text? It's to imply that Alice is remembering that Joffrey was disassembled and how serious it is and why that makes her upset. I think when Joffrey says disassembled, it's also in red or in a different color. I keep opening my abilities expecting Bone Barrage, but it's not there. Why does Ludwig throw a child? Because she was standing in his way. That's just what you do. It's a good thing that Jack was immune to the immobilization, so he could join in on the last fight. Like Raps a Jekyll. Oh, look, it's Scruffy. We can save him now. Gun Skippy down. Spectacular. So anyways, can you let us out? Here we go, the iconic Act 2 beginning party. Okay, bye. fuck is that guy? Oh, here he is again. I think we need a fourth party member. We really need a fourth party member. So this is going to get tougher in here. Spooktacular. You think I'm gonna lose here? You have no faith in a gun. Who's that guy that just started talking? I haven't met him yet. That's craziness. I don't know why I did shockwave. Why would there be a random pile of salt in the woods? Oh god, that's why it's strange. That guy really wants to get me. Alrighty then. Huh. Wasn't too bad. We would have obviously died without Jack, but that was not too bad. Wait, I didn't have that achievement? Anyways. Oh, wow. What do you call a bee that's died and since returned as an undead? A zombie. Wait, there's a baby over here. Avoid the baby. I did that accidentally. There's nobody here. Who is this guy that I've never met before? This is going to end poorly. Feet tall with eyes of red, and if you're on his list you're gonna end up dead with his great big crossbow and his deadly whirlwind. Bees beware, it's gonna be your end. Believe, believe, Yes, you can. Believe in the power of the Mothman. Believe, believe. Yes, you can. Believe in the power of the Mothman. I believe in you, saving us all from this creepy hysteria. Your bright red eyes and gigantic wings that make me wanna sing. Mothman, 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 Mothman. When the netherments are struck in the dead of day, you can bet that Mothman kept him at bay. Webb's McGregor, worse for weather, never showed his face. He's a disgrace. He's a disgrace.
Popular. Popular.
Jumping.
Popular.
Oh, fuck you, Lord. What is this also character that I have never seen before in this playthrough? I don't know what this is. It's nice of them to wait till we move out of the way to start running. Anyways, forget that. That's scary. It's very scary. I don't like that. I'm just gonna play in the water. Huh. Wait. No. Kawhi. I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting to die here. The Jack trip strat is insane. I might have to nerf that. Oh my god, okay, okay. Oops, I did not mean to regular attack with Wendy. Internal, we're in Act 2. I think we're trying to find a dog or something. I don't know. We are at level 11. I think it's not that Jack is fast enough, it's that move is fast enough. I'm pretty sure the kick has a speed addition to it. Oh, okay, this is where the run ends, guys. This is where it ends, just so you know. It's been fun, but yeah. Well, we're gonna go down fighting. That's what's important. Bolt, it's up to you, buddy. You can do it. Okay, so Bolt can't do it. We got surprisingly far. Anyways, that's enough of that goofy mess. Let's see here. Here we are again. Let's see here. Some good ending music. Here we go. So guys, I think that's going to be it for our Q&A HorrorVale celebration. Thank you for everyone who attended, who had some fun with me tonight. It was great to just celebrate HorrorVale. I can't believe that it's been out for a year. That's insane to me. Yes, but thanks for tuning in. This is going to be it. Obviously, the VOD will still be on YouTube. At some point, there will be maybe timestamps. Maybe. But yeah, that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you to all who have attended this most spectacular of evenings. Now, my creatures of the night, it is your turn to travel out into the world. Tell the people of HorrorVale. Spread its influence across the night. This is my ode to you. Anyways, have a great night, everybody. Happy Halloween. Yeah, that's going to be it for the HorrorVale Halloween Spooktacular. Actually, that was our last event planned. Stay tuned for HorrorVale Act-M updates and stuff like that. Further updates. What more can I say? Have a great night. Have a happy Halloween. Thank you.